All right, fact check this, episode 9. I hadn't really intended to do anything today, but my son had some questions about some things this morning, got me kind of on a roll talking to him about a few different things, so I decided to go ahead and do at least a short one, just to sort of get some of that stuff off my chest and put it out there and maybe get some feedback on it. I had posted a question on my Facebook the other day wanting to know why it was that the black community seems to so outright support Democratic candidates. And I hadn't gotten any feedback or any responses to that. And so what I'm trying to figure out, and I do mean it as a very sincere question, and I would really sincerely like actual feedback and answers, because from where I'm sitting, and maybe it's because I have been pretty red pilled and don't have a lot of faith in any side of the government, like the Democrats or the Republicans. They're all just completely terrible, and none of them do anything that's beneficial to any community at all. Honestly, they only serve themselves. And I specifically see it in the kind of insane levels of, or percentage wise, of the black community that supports Democrats when their policies really don't support your communities. Like if we go back to the 80s and the war on drugs and look at that, and Biden's claim that he voted in favor of that, but that he immediately regretted it, and it was the one of the worst decisions that he had ever made. But then he turns around and doubles down on that decision with the 94 crime bill that he authored, which all of this, the war on drugs and the crime bill, and yes, I realize that there were prominent members of the black community who had a say in the 94 crime bill and input into it because they needed to clean up communities, but the communities wouldn't have needed to be cleaned up if it hadn't been for the war on drugs to begin with. Like, all of these policies, they only go to negatively affect already poor and impoverished neighborhoods. They already go to affect people that are not, or that are having trouble with stuff anyway. Like, that's where a lot of the drug use and all of that happens. And then when it's illegalized and pursued as aggressively as what it has been, then it creates the black market. The black market creates more crime, and then the more crime that it creates, the more of a need there is for this militarized police state. And it creates this vicious cycle where nothing ever actually gets accomplished. And for all of the talk about changing it and doing something to have an impact on it where this is not the case, Democrats never do anything. They never actually put forth any legislation. They never actually vote for anything that would change any of this. Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, and there are Republicans out there who are, and admittedly those are a little more libertarian leaning guys, but there are Republicans out there who are actually trying to put forward legislation that would end no-knock raids, that would end qualified immunity. Like, all the things that the black community says they want, the Democrats won't vote for it because it's a Republican that puts it forward. But the Democrats won't come up with their own plan to fix it either. So, what do you fucking want? There's got to be some level of accountability that these politicians are held to, because right now you blindly throw support their way and then they don't do anything to help. I just got done reading a pretty good article from the Mises Institute about the foundation of minimum wage laws and the just insanely negative impact that had specifically and directly on black communities when it was enacted. And if we're being completely honest, that is still happening now. Minimum wage laws price lower level, uneducated, unskilled workers out of jobs because for whatever the minimum wage is, and this is just basic economics, that people, our education system is a complete and total failure because it doesn't teach people any of the basics of this kind of stuff, of economics or taxes or anything really. But the way the minimum wage laws are set up, if you don't have a skill and you don't have an education and you're just trying to get your feet in the door somewhere, the minimum wage laws have sort of priced you out of the ability to get a job in a lot of areas that would actually have the ability to move up and to work your way into something more. So then you're stuck in these just totally useless dead end, as far as a career goes, useless dead end jobs that aren't going to produce anything long term. And the reason that works that way is because for whatever your wage is, there is a cost of productivity that is associated with that wage. So whatever your employer is paying you, they have to be able to recoup that money plus operating costs, taxes, all the other insurance, everything else. There are operating costs associated with your pay on top of that. So it increases the price of everything. Plus, if you're unskilled and you don't have anything to start out with, then the level of a job that you can get is severely reduced to whatever can afford. And you're going to end up working for like these big multi-billion-dollar corporations that don't care about that base level employee, where the actual privately owned businesses or companies that would be good to work for, that would be able to train and promote and help you build up and create a career out of that and develop a skill, they can't afford to pay these ever rising minimum wages to unskilled workers who can't come in and directly produce right out the gate. So it's constantly taking people in poor communities and it's pricing them out of the jobs that would create long-term careers and give them the opportunity to make money and advance and get out of those situations. And not that government policy is a never-ending cycle of keeping people who are in poverty, and that's all it amounts to. And that's what is exceptionally infuriating and kills me about everything about the specifically minority communities supporting Democrats, is because you see it on full display in all of these big cities, in New York, Los Angeles, everywhere, all across the country, in Chicago, San Francisco, you name it, there it is. You see it. They have all these liberal policies that are supposedly going to help the poor communities, help the black communities, help the minority communities. And those are the people that are the most impoverished in those parts of the country. So where are the policies that they supposedly have that are going to help? Where are the solutions that they supposedly have come up with that are going to change anything? Like, it's all promises that are hollow and have no foundation. And we've got to get away from that. Like, I'm going to post a link on my Facebook page, and I'll include it in the show notes for the podcast here. I'm going to link to as many minority and female people who have a voice within the libertarian community as I can think of off the top of my head. And if anybody's got any others, feel free to post them and throw them out there, because there are a lot of voices out there that are trying to say all of the stuff that I'm saying that aren't, middle-class white dudes sitting in their basement. Like, these are guys and women out in these communities that came from these communities that want you to have liberty and freedom and to get out of the rut that our governmental system has created and change your scenario and change your life and not be reliant on the government to provide anything, because the government will never provide a solution. They will only provide a new problem that you have to rely on them to solve for you. That's all I got. I told you I was going to keep it short and sweet. Hopefully everybody has a good weekend. I won't be doing any more of these until probably Monday or Tuesday. So y'all have a good weekend. Please comment, leave notes. If there's somebody that you follow or listen to or that writes articles or whatever, post it, link it, let us know. I want people to have the access to all the information they can get so that we can be more educated and more informed. And in 2022 and in 2024, when these elections come back around and these same piece of shit politicians are up there spouting the same useless stuff that they've been saying for the entire time they've been in office and have not actually acted on any of it and not followed through on any of it, we need to hold these motherfuckers accountable and get them out of office and start putting people in place who actually care about the people. That's all I got. Have a good one.